All right. This is Dennis Wells, and I'm here with Giorgio Karayannis, and he's an amazing realtor with App Properties here in Michigan City and Chicago. And thank you so much for joining me here today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dennis. It's a real pleasure and honor.
So awesome. Well, it wanted to get started here by asking, like what most people ask, how did you get your start in the real estate business?
So it's a great question, and I won't bore you with the whole entire timeline. So I grew up in the restaurant business. My family had owned several restaurants in Michigan City, so that hospitality and service side was basically began when I was in diapers, all the way through college and up until my 30s. I then founded a food CPG company that sold products in restaurants and grocery stores nationwide. And I was always looking for an opportunity to somewhat supplement my income as an entrepreneur. You know, you sometimes bootstrap your business and your funds. And so that's where I was positioned. And I had a great friend that was in the business. His mother had started a brokerage, which was called Mickey Gallus Properties. I'd always tossed around the idea to get my real estate license by power of proxy. Some of my family's real estate properties and assets I had somewhat managed and helped support my father's decision making and some of that stuff. So I always kind of had a behind the scenes kind of perspective from it and interest. Decided to hunker down, got my license in 2018. When I decided to switch directions out of my food CPG company, I had a long conversation with now my team lead, Jordan Gallus, who at the same time was looking to grow and expand and scale their business. And that's when App Properties came in and incorporated and acquired them. And carried under that brand. So it was almost like the perfect timing. I was looking to move in a different direction and real estate happened to be the path, and that's where I've been. So I've been doing this full time since 2019.
Love it. I love it. So I know we've talked about this off camera, but tell me some of the ways that your experience in the restaurant business with customer service and and client experience has really played into how you practice real estate.
Yeah, so it's a great question. The service aspect of the business is really what's important. You know, as you probably have heard, and it's kind of cliche that I believe our business is relationship based. And so that customer experience from when in my restaurant days is when they first walk in that door, the energy and enthusiasm you have to bring because you set the tone for the whole evening. And I think that sometimes could surpass if maybe you missed on their meal, or the music was too loud, or there was a screaming kid next door and they couldn't enjoy that experience. So we always focused on the experience. And I try to carry that and mirror that into the relationship because real estate is it's a very complex transaction process. It can be nerve wracking. You deal with multiple personalities. And so I always try to focus on, am I giving the customer or the client that experience that they deserve? And so that hospitality, which culturally, we're very hospitable people, right? So we invite strangers on the street to come in your house and have a lemonade per se, you know, wink, wink, maybe not always lemonade, but we always try to carry that on. And so I know how important it is just to connect with people, build that relationship, and then help them through one of probably the more complex and bigger transactions in their life. And so focus is the customer and the client first and making sure they are understood, heard, and you're achieving their goals. It's not just about either helping them buy or sell a house. It's really understanding the seller's goals or the buyer's goals and making sure you're achieving that and bringing them success. So I think hospitality and the service, whether it's white glove or not, is to make sure that you are really focusing on their needs and providing them that experience at the end of the day.
Yep. No, I love it because kind of think of the parallels. A lot of people think it's a very commoditized thing. And, you know, if you go, you can go to one restaurant and get a $20 hamburger. You know, you can go to another restaurant and spend $200 on a meal. And it's because it's a totally different experience. It's a totally different environment. And I think a lot of people don't realize that real estate can be that way, that, you know, it's not just about, you know, buying the house per se. It's like you're talking about. It's understanding your goals, understanding your dreams, and what it is you're trying to do can really affect on your end what you're doing to provide that value.
Agreed, 100%. Absolutely. And it should be reinforced and emphasized throughout every transaction, no matter who the client is, whether it's the first time home buyer, maybe the investment buyer, or luxury price point seller. I think that you should probably treat and service them the same. And I think there's not one that you offer a better service or a better offering than the next. It should be pretty much the same, and driving that, every day and every point of, whether it's the first consultation call all the way to the closing table, making sure you emphasize that. So I have to agree with your perspective wholeheartedly.
Yeah. What are some things that you do to help you understand your client, their dreams, and their goals?
Yeah, so there is a process. Not always very systematic and automated, but we have a great company that has coached and trained us to be that way. So I kind of just incorporate a simple process. Whether just before we got on this call, it was a seller who unfortunately has some health issues, is down with family in Georgia, has to sell their home in Indiana, and is just really to fully understand their goals and their objectives, and just getting to know them and building that rapport, building that trust. And so I asked him pretty, intimate and deep dive questions, so I really understand what's important to them. And then basically get to the property after that, right? Just to truly who they are, what they're doing, what do they need, what's their timeline like, what are they looking from me, what's important to them. Let's say, hey, do you need your hand to be held, especially with like an out of state client? I can always be your boots on the ground, but if you want this process not to be nerve wracking or stressful, or you don't think that you have the support, because when you're states away, I mean, not always easy to do this transaction, right? Or to complete it. And knowing that they have someone who can, take the lion's share and make sure that we achieve their goals. It's just really truly understanding their goals, and it's getting to know them. You ask them the direct questions, and then just really understanding what's important to them.
Yeah, yeah, I love it because like you're saying, it's not a one size fits all. And depending on what your goals are, that could totally change our strategy because, I mean, if your goal is, I just want to be out of this house in a month, well, that's a different strategy than I want to make sure that, we're not, that we're getting everything we possibly can and, and those kinds of things.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, it's very nuanced and dynamic. Everybody has different goals. I mean, I've taken what, 3 calls today. One was from, hey, I want to maximize my value because I want to leave something for my children. Two is, I want to be able to sell as quick as possible so I can get to my grandchildren faster. And then this one has somewhat more of a, not so much of a pressing issue, but some health conditions that feels that she can't maintain her current home and wants to be able to kind of leave that chapter in her past and move on to the next. So it's multifaceted, which I love it. That's why I don't believe real estate's always, again, either a mundane or kind of a complacent experience. It's just there's so many things that people go through, and you got to help them and guide them and be their resource, right? So it's definitely the fun part of it is to really kind of know that, and where maybe you got to be the problem solver, and then you just know that no matter what, you're putting your client's best interests and their goals in as priority, and making sure that you drive the success, and that's it. It's just it's wonderful. So this position and this responsibility is never boring.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like that part of your job is helping people, even on their level, understand exactly what they're wanting to do. Because sometimes they have like, oh, I want to sell my house. But if you dig deeper, you help them understand, what their ultimate goal is, how that affects their timeline. Like you're saying, as someone whose grandson did move, you know, all the way across the country, you're like, okay, how quickly can we get from point A to point B? So yeah, it sounds, like um, a strategist and, you know, maybe kind of a therapist as well.
We wear many hats, yes. I'm not trained and educated in some of the fields. I may have to offer some type of anecdotal experience, but yes, but again, it's almost like trying to build that relationship and being their friend, maybe their big brother, maybe their protective, uncle or father, right? And I think that's really what it needs, and it's again, you kind of have to, again, ascertain and discern who and what your clients' needs are and making sure you're fulfilling those. And it's a joy to work with all those different types of people, but I try to have the same approach to everyone, making sure that again we reinforce the client experience and their needs are being heard and met. And after that, the real estate part is kind of secondary. It's ancillary. It's just really the people and making sure that we're fulfilling their goals and their objectives. That's it. And I know that's redundant, but that's exactly what it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Where do you see the real estate market going in the next 6 to 12 months?
So if I'm going to take my anecdote, not, and I'm a data driven person too. I love insights and metrics. I think data tells a story, which I'm sure that's no news to anyone. But I work two markets essentially. I kind of cover the Northwest Indiana. And I also deal with the Chicago market, the metro market, not so much the suburban areas, but the urban areas. And it's almost a tale of two markets. One could be somewhat slower, and it's not as chaotic. The other one, we're dealing with multiple offers, and you're throwing in time and energy, and it's like so fast paced because you may miss out on an opportunity. So I think depends on where you're at. I think overall, there's great indicators that are showing us that there's two glaring factors in the market: is turnkey properties and accurate pricing. And I feel like I'm a broken record when I say this to both buyers and sellers. If your property is in great condition, you've made the conscious and mindful updates that it's needed, whether it's on trend cosmetically, but the major systems like your HVAC and your roof, buyers are not lining up at the door and they don't really have the appetite to swing a hammer as much. So they want turnkey and accurate pricing, properties move. And that's in markets where people think that the market is really stale and boring. I think inventory is impacted, right? Simple economics, supply and demand, areas and markets with tight inventory. If they meet those two criteria, it should move really fast. I deal with multiple offers when I list homes. I deal with multiple offers when I'm dealing with buyers. So I think that's really what's moving the market. And it doesn't really, I think, affect because everybody has a different motive or maybe base their decisions on is whether the interest rates fluctuate and become somewhat volatile. It might spook them a little bit and they might want to sit on the sidelines. Or you have those that just don't really care. There's always going to be something that's going to come up, right? Whether
Mhm.
it's life happens, right? Downsize, a death, a marriage, a new baby. I think that's going to continue to move. But I feel like there's this uptrend that's going to happen. You see in like the Chicago market, appreciation's increasing. So when I do workshops with buyers, you can see the data showing that there is a J curve, right? The appreciation. So if those who are waiting for interest rates to get better, well, you're going to deal with the appreciation values, kind of increasing year over year, and it shows that. So I think that you have to make sure that it's the right time for you, and does it
Mhm.
make sense, right? So I then dig down and do a deep dive into the data to make sure again that aligns with the client's goals. It's not always for everybody, but if it is the right time for you, hey, we can figure out the strategy and the solutions to make sure we bring you that success. So I think overall, I think we got a good shift in the upward market, and all indicators are showing at least 2026 is better than 2025 in some areas.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And that a lot of people talk about the lock-in effect, that everybody's sitting there with a 2% mortgage rate and they're not going to ever move. It's like there are as many people with an interest rate that start with a six or above than there are with, starts with under a six. And because, like you're saying, people die, people get divorced, people have kids, people change jobs. Sometimes it's just a matter of the economics don't work, anymore, or they don't want to, or they want to be in a better school system, or they want to, you know, take care of some debt or whatever it is. There's a lot of different reasons. And, and that's part of our job is to help them understand what it is they're trying to accomplish and how their, their transition, really want to make sure that they get in a much better financial situation on the other side as well, so that's, and I totally agree as well with the, supply and demand. Just, it's amazing how it always works. It's like if your house has been sitting for a while, to me, that means that it's not priced right for the market and the condition, but if you have a professional working with you, understands your goals and your dreams, prices are right for the market and the condition, like you're saying, you know, they tend to do quite a bit better than the average person.
They do. They do. And I think that's where the expertise has to come into play. I think that's the real value for whether you're a buyer or a seller, in which, I kind of operate as a very frank and straightforward and forthright agent. I'm not here to put a sign in your yard for 60 days. I'm not here to tell you that it may be the right time for you to buy based on your goals. I'm going to let you know, hey, listen, this is a time that we got to jump and move, or hey, why don't we just take a break for a little bit, wait for some things to maybe possibly cool down. And so, navigating that, again, is just really listening to what the client's goals and needs are. It seems like, again, we're circling back to that, but I think that's the value there. And you got to drive that point home. If it was just a bud, I think anybody would have a real estate license to put a sign in the yard. But that's going to do you no good, especially if your client's going to point the finger at you as, why hasn't my home sold yet? It's if did you give them the right information? Did you give them the right data? Did you put the right strategy together to make sure their home did sell? Or, if you're on the buy, making sure maybe what price to come into if you do find one of those homes that have sit and sale on the market. So again, everybody has a different appetite, different tolerance, and you just got to make sure you understand that and capture that for them.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. And as you're talking, I think one of the things that came out is that the more real a conversation you have at the beginning, the much better conversations you have as you move along. Where sometimes the temptation is, oh, I'll take your listing and it seems like, right, that I'll take your listing, I'll price it whatever you want. Well, then you're almost kicking the can down the road because now 4 to 6 months later, you're having the conversation of, well, maybe we ought to do this, maybe we ought to do that. Whereas if you had like the real conversation to begin with, then that process would go a lot better.
I would agree. Yeah, it kind of softens the blow a little bit when you have to have that more challenging and difficult conversation topic is like, listen, why isn't my house on? Well, we didn't price it accordingly, or we didn't position it correctly. Yeah, it's always good to kind of set expectations and then make sure we set that course. And if we need a course correct, we can. But you should always be forward thinking because this business makes you move quickly. There's always the surprises that come up, and so you need to definitely be that expert and that resource for them so you guide them correctly. Because at the end of the day, uh, you know, th- we as realtors have to be a CEO of our own business. It's bad for our business. It's bad for our brand if we have properties that we promise and underdeliver, and now you see a stale property. Well, that affects my metrics and insights. So when I go and talk to a home seller and say, "Hey, why you should list with me or why you should hire me and work together," if I don't have the data to support it, why would they hire me? Is it going to be based on, oh, was that just because I was nice or, I dress well or, whatever you may call it, right? I think you truly have to be very cautious and sensitive to yourself as what business you can attain versus, hey, sorry, seller, maybe it's not a good idea for us to work together because we may not have the same vision. We may not have the same goals. And maybe you should go with someone because it would be a disservice to you if you listen to my guidance that didn't align with your stuff. Right. So I'm not afraid to be, um, upfront and turn down business if that's the case. Because again, everybody may have a different appetite. Maybe everybody have a different alignment. So I'm very conscious on that, both on what their needs are and what my business needs are as well for, maintaining longevity or protecting my brand name or making sure that, hey, my reputation and my testimonials are important to me, right? Because I think that adds value to my clients in the future. So I'm very conscientious, especially in a more delicate market, so to speak, where you need to be that expert and that guide for your client and that resource to make sure. So again, we're going to probably drive and reiterate a lot of those same points over and over. At least I'll speak for myself.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love it because like what I'm hearing, we want to help everybody, but we can't help everybody because like if you're not aligned with, how we do our business, then it's not going to be good for you or for us or for me to be working together. And it doesn't make you like a bad person, but it just is like it's just not a fit. And that's okay. Being confident enough in our value and in our process to be able like, yeah, this is our ideal client and this, is maybe not our ideal client. With that in mind, what are some things that you look at to say, hey, this is an ideal client for me, or these are the generalities that I find with someone who really fits in with, what what I'm doing as a real estate professional.
It's a great question. I think overall is it can probably boil down to a simple characteristic. Are they realistic? Is this a realistic expectation? I'm not going to sit here and again, uh, my business model may not be to drive in my car and circle 2 hour radius for a client that just can't maybe be decisive, or is looking for that unicorn. It's not to say I wouldn't take them, but I gotta kind of streamline them and refine and filter it to where, hey, you're putting your time and attention and energy and resources into good use. So if I feel like they're just out there kind of not being as motivated or as realistic, then I would probably have to consider whether this is a client to work with. And that's really all it takes. And I think I can flush that out with my questions in whether it's a game plan strategy call or an induction call, basically listing interview questions. I try to flush that out too, because again, you're interviewing me, but I'm also interviewing you. And you kind of, not to say you have to meet my criteria, but again, I think it just boils down to, is it realistic? I have walked away from clients before, or at least referred them if I feel like I can't give the level of service they deserve, and not compromise my standards and my core values. So I think I got to take that all into consideration. We evaluate, analyze, and then ultimately say, hey, is this something I can do? I had that conversation with a client this morning looking for investment properties, and they needed to know the markets that can have short-term rentals or not. And they told me a market where it was 45 minutes away. And I said, listen, I'm upfront. I can sell you a property anywhere in Indiana or in Illinois, but doesn't mean I'm an expert in that market. Is that what you're looking for? And they're like, no, we don't really need an expert, but maybe if you can help us. I said, well, my reach is not that far, but if you identify a property, then I could then assist you and support you in that transaction. But otherwise, that's not my area of expertise. And they're like, well, no, 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 we're not looking for that. So I'm usually upfront with them. As long as they're upfront with me, we keep that
Hmm.
transparency and making sure that we're all collaborating and working collectively to that end goal. Right. So I think if I wrap that question up is, my success depends on my client's success, not the other way around. So I got to make sure that we're achieving that, I guess. And that's kind of maybe my main theme when I do meet, whether it's a buyer, a seller, or an investor.
Yeah, I love that. That your success is really tied to their success. Like that, if they're successful, your business takes care of itself.
It's kind of ancillary, it's ancillary and it's rewarding, and it just depends on, again, can we achieve that? And if we do, it should come naturally.
Well, tell me one or two goals that you have for the next 6 to 12 months.
Oh, that's a loaded question there, Dennis.
And we can cut it out if we need to.
I mean, really, it's kind of just keep doing what I do. I mean, we focus and emphasize a lot of working in our business, a lot of working on our business. So, kind of growing my pipeline, but also knowing that I can't load my plate up with too much. One thing that I've really been emphasizing and focusing on is this year, which I've kind of made try to protect, is knowing when to be able to delegate some of maybe not being at every client tour, and having a partner that can come in and assist me with that. Putting some more automated systems in place so I can service my clients better and also grow my pipeline. Because again, we're the CEO of our own business, and you have to maintain your current client base. You have to grow your pipeline. You have to be a transaction coordinator sometimes. So focuses on is relying that I don't need to be everywhere and I can have a partner come in and help support. And two is probably installing some more automated systems to then help support my clients and my own business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the CEO idea because the CEO isn't doing everything. They're focusing on, what is my unique value to my clients, which sounds like your unique value, right, is understanding their needs and sometimes maybe understanding their needs better than they understand their needs and helping them be able to make some really good decisions. And then, yeah, if it's something, you know, uh, paperwork wise, or even sometimes showing and those kinds of things, there's someone who can help do that so that it enables you to focus on your highest and best use.
Very, very much so. We have to be an expert in marketing. We have to be an expert in, emailing. We have to be an expert at setting up events. Like, I mean, it's a challenge. We wear several hats, and I got to really focus on where my strengths are and where my weaknesses are, and making sure that there's opportunity. As long as you have a supportive team, a supportive brokerage that you can rely on, and you know, it's any entrepreneur that says that, you gotta put in the work. It takes the time. This doesn't come easily. So as long as you're there and dedicated and committed to the process, you have to be there. And I'll go with the cliche that real estate never sleeps. So you need to be there. And outside of the things that are really important in, let's say, my personal life, like my daughter, is super important. So I'm making sure and mindful that I can spend time with her and be there, and still maintain and protect my business and my clients' objectives here. So there's a lot of hats that we wear, and you got to make sure that you know where you're strong at, know where you're weak, and try to improve on those, I guess, on a daily basis.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, Yorgo, thank you so much for meeting with me here today. I'm excited to see the finished result of the podcast.
Oh, I am as well. It was a pleasure. It was an honor. It's always great to have our conversation. And I'm always honored to receive your feedback and your wisdom and your knowledge as being a mortgage broker, and obviously working together and bringing our clients' success together. It's always fun. It's always a pure joy and honor.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Well, thank you again.
All right, Dennis, have a good one. Thank you.
You too.